Welcome to the Corner Office, where we bring you the latest news from the world of commercial real estate, the greatest voices in the industry, and the corporate chats you've been missing. Let's get to it.
Today we have Kate, our head of marketing at Galetti, talking to us. Kate is wearing a blue jacket today. Why did you choose to wear a blue jacket?
Because you usually steal the show in podcasts.
Got you.
So I thought like a bright jacket.
I've broken out of the mold today. I've gone for a black shirt. So
you're definitely going to blend into the background.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself. So in the company we all do our Enneagrams. Surprise, surprise, you were the intense creative, the 4.
I can't remember the number.
Yeah, intense creative.
The intense creative Enneagram actually did shock me.
The reality is it's a spectrum. So you can be somewhere on that spectrum. Maybe you're a little bit more creative, but you still have a lot of logic.
So I think for me, the intense creativity just comes with like the way that my brain works. It's not necessarily... I don't know. I don't think it's an external thing, even the Enneagrams. It's weird because actually like before varsity, I wasn't really tapping into like a creative space. Like I was quite an academic at school, you know, like my subjects were biology, physics,
You're
and
just
business.
bringing that out there just for the...
Okay. But then after school, when I started sort of like experimenting with content creation, that was like my first introduction to creativity.
I was worried about what the end of that sentence was going to be, but yeah. Okay.
What did you think it was going to be?
I don't know.
No. I think in school it was more like instruments and like group, what do you call it, team sports and stuff like that, but I never did any design subjects at school. I never did art, so it was actually interesting to end up in this field. I don't know, I think like my family's very creative. My mom is extremely creative. My sister did design and arts in school, and then my other sister's like super academic, so I think I came in and kind of found the balance between both of them, and that's why I'm where I am now. I'm working, trying to be creative in corporate.
So you're a creative corporate, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm glad we've covered that.
Okay, fantastic.
You run a few businesses. Okay, you are a high energy person. So I know this about you. In fact, when we first started talking, you had a whole lot of things on the go. And we're going to talk about the tech as well, because basically I'll tell you, the first time I met Kate, she came in and wowed us with all these tech applications as a typical Gen.
Take an iPad to an interview.
A Gen
Z.
Z. What am I? Gen X. Okay. I'm Gen X. No, am I?
You are.
No.
You seem disappointed.
I feel like I'm just outside of that.
I think you're a Gen Z at heart, to be honest.
I've got the grey hair. Anyway, so Kate brought out this iPad and she's linked her emails to all this kind of stuff, and she could track our accounts and had all this really interesting stuff. And so, later I want to talk a little bit about sort of tech applications and also data-led marketing, because specifically in real estate, data-led marketing is so critical, because if we're not tracking, and I suppose in all brands and all business really, you can't just go marketing. I mean, and I think about, my dear mother, for example, and she says, I really need someone to, do my marketing, but she has absolutely no idea what she's tracking, what she wants to do, what she wants to actually achieve. And you've got to set out with these objectives. What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve more people following you? Do you have an interesting story? How are you engaging with your community, as it were, But all of that leads down to hard data, which is actually trackable. And Kate brought that to our office. And it was really, really interesting. So I want to dive into that later. But how are you able to, is it the tech that you're able to pull all of this together? You've got different businesses, you've got photography, you've got a marketing agency, you've got this role, you've got a whole lot of stuff going on.
I think if it required a different brain, like if it was all different things, it would be more challenging. I think yes, I use the same tech across everything that I'm doing at Galetti and every other sort of like venture that I'm involved in, but I think it's kind of the same brain, and at one, like what I learn in one space I bring into the other, so that's what I think makes it easy, is that the one learns from the other, and the way that it's structured, it's all very integrated, and it kind of all operates in the same space, which makes it easy to move across, I think. But I do think tech plays a massive role, because automation's one thing I was doing manually 3 months ago is now an automation. Yeah. So it's kind of just this constant evolvement and learning of how you can do how can you spend your 12 hours in a day? Yeah. When everyone else goes to bed at 7 or whatever, then I don't for a couple more hours, few more.
I have you. So, for me, it's quite interesting really, because now you're pulling all the different ideas, as I suppose anyone does. If you're involved in different things, you get a great idea over there, or you see a way of making something more efficient, you're going to take it across, right? That's I suppose, human nature.
Yeah.
What's interesting for me, though, is your approach is really, and I suppose your business called 4Time, you're approaching it from a 4Time. It's very clear what your statement is there, right? It's to be efficient, efficiency in marketing, pulling these things together. And at marketing, advertising, I mean, I suppose all of this pulls together, but how is it that you drive efficiencies into your marketing process? We'll talk about the creativity, but this is now the logical business brain working, right? So how are you driving these efficiencies in without giving away the secret sauce?
It actually started just from a natural skill. Like I think it was something I even said to you when I first interviewed, and it was kind of like, you're not going to find someone who can design something as good and as fast as I can. So it was kind of this thing is when I see something, I know what I want to change. I know what I want. If you give me a draft, I can fix it really quickly. So that was kind of where it started, is that it was a compliment I was getting. It was part of testimonials. It was something that clients were constantly referring to, even from a photography perspective. When I was taking on photography clients, it was how quick I got them the photos afterwards. No one really wants to wait a year for their wedding photos, but everybody does. So when they don't, it's this massive selling point. And then I was getting like, I did their 40th, the child's 18th, then the next child, like it's the same clients that keep coming back.
Decisive, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was constantly this common thread of efficiency, which I then fed into. And I was like, okay, well, if people appreciate it so much, it's really not that difficult for me to get these things out so quickly. So it was how I trained the rest of the team. And then obviously when Vans and I started going into business together, she's very much operations focused. So she loves a process that works from A to Z very fast. So then we kind of joined my creative efficiency and her operations efficiency, and that was the development of 4Time. It's about being up to date with the latest tech. You shouldn't be doing something manually if it can be automated, and that's where this whole ChatGPT things come in. But on the other hand, it's about having the right people in the right places. If it's set up correctly, especially in a creative field, the people who are in the right positions will be able to do what they do very fast. Yeah. If you put a good graphic designer in your company with a good copywriter, they should be able to collaborate and produce work really quickly. Whereas like if there's the wrong people, especially in a creative space, then it can be a very lengthy process. That's when you're getting like terrible 2-week turnaround. I remember when I first joined, I mean, you guys were getting brochures outsourced, and I mean those would take like 2-3 weeks to push out. When I first joined.
Aren't you wishing that? You just left them out there?
So much. But it's fine. And now we push our brochures in like an hour, you know? So I think it's a mixture of skill and tech.
Efficiency,
yeah.
So, I mean, what I want to chat about now is ChatGPT. You sort of touched on it there. Have you used any of the others?
No, actually I haven't.
Apparently Bard, that's the Google one.
Yeah.
No, Google one. ChatGPT is Microsoft.
Well, it's been integrated
Musk,
to Microsoft, yeah.
So I think Bard is Google one. Apparently also great, up to date.
But you don't think they're all kind of going to be the same now? It's like fitness watches and phones. Like once the tech comes out,
what I hate is when you hit the limitations. You know, they write rules, so they say, "I can't be mean."
Yes.
Or I can't
have an opinion.
I can't have an opinion.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it is. I can't have an opinion. And that's a rule because I bet you it can have an opinion, but they've said you can't have an opinion.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Ethics.
Is that what it's driving at? I don't
100%,
know.
100%, because who programmed it? Whose opinion are we now pulling through?
Well, it's the world's general opinion. Isn't it sourcing data from the entire world?
It is, but that's why I can't have an opinion. Because if you ask it for an opinion, it's like, give me your opinion on the growth of the commercial real estate
Well, I suppose it's
sector.
going to be database, right? So it's 60-40, so it's going to go for the 60.
Oh, I guess. But then is it just about who's pushing out the more content, the people that are on the 60 or the people on the 40?
But that's why but it's self-learning.
So we're going to go down such a hole here.
I just wanted to have an opinion.
John doesn't like things without opinions.
I also want it to be mean sometimes. Right? Kate, a mean email.
It can do that.
No, it didn't. It stopped the other day.
Really?
Yes. I want to talk about influencer marketing, okay? Personal branding. Okay? Now, in real estate, so we talked a little bit about marketing. I want to talk about real estate, which is our space. The residential guys are obviously moving way ahead of the commercial guys.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing. That's a trend, right?
Yeah.
The residential guys also have a lot of personal branding. And you've got a lot of influencer marketing coming in. I mean, you know, some of the guys that I like following, you got DDRE, Daniel Daggers, you got Sahant, you got, you know, a couple of guys in that space who are actually doing really, really well with their personal branding, but they've actually turned their business into a marketing business. I mean, we refer to ourselves as an information and marketing business. they are literally marketing as sort of above all else. Then they've got really efficient deal makers. So I suppose a similar process, they've worked out their efficiency. They've got great deal makers that put them in place, right? Where do you see that going in commercial? And also another question, South Africa is not really picking up that trend that well.
I think when it comes to resi and commercial, the biggest difference is that residential, like, it's a lot more emotional because it's a home. So I feel like the people that are doing really well online from a residential perspective, it's so easy to sell because you walk into this magnificent home that's been staged, you walk through it and you kind of sell a home. Whereas commercial, you're selling an opportunity. You're selling like a story. It's not necessarily like you're going to come live here. It's like, can you actually grow your business here? Which is a lot more unattractive in a way. It's a lot more
it's utilitarian,
and I mean social media, if you're looking at like an influencer space, it's all about aesthetics. It's all about what you see. It's about grabbing people's attention. So I think from a residential perspective, it's a lot easier to do. It's not impossible to do on a commercial side, but you need to have the right people who know what they're talking about.
I think Instagram's also driven a lot of it, right? Because people are looking at like, they love following like billionaire brands. It's inspirational.
I always say
right?
like Instagram is for inspiration, TikTok's for relatability, and LinkedIn's for networking. The whole thing about personal branding and even influencer marketing, people connect with people. And I think from any business's perspective, and that's also what COVID did. COVID forced businesses to be more real online because everyone was craving this human connection. So the content has seemed to shift so fast towards like humor and like jokes and stuff like that actually inspire human emotion. Like it's no longer just, here's our product, do you want to tap and buy it? Like that's not really doing
storytelling.
Exactly. It's become a storytelling thing, and it's so much easier to do that through a personal brand than it is through like a brand, especially a massive brand. So I think personal brands that's exactly what it's introduced. It's how can you actually sell your product from person to person.
Being you, yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of taking B2B and B2C and making it a person-to-person exchange, which I think is very interesting. And then on the other side of influencer marketing, I mean, what influencers do, and when people think about influencers, they think like fashion influencers, travel influencers, those are the people that started the space. But nowadays, there are influencers in every single category you can possibly think of. And I mean, there's so many people who will say to me, my target audience isn't on social media. Like, I just don't think, I've even heard it here in the office. People be like, I don't think people are going to spend 700 million rand. I don't think that lead's going to come from social media. And look at what happened. We've had leads come from Facebook that have ended up in
significant transactions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you actually have no idea where your audience is going to come from. But what social media has done so well is to niche it out for you with hashtags, with categories, with whatever it might be. And if you're an influencer online, say you're a property influencer and you have thousands of followers, you have thousands of followers in a specific niche. So if you're collaborating with an influencer, you know that they've grown their audience in that niche. So it kind of gives you, instead of having to spend thousands and thousands on a billboard or whatever, you're having a direct access to an engaged
and the
audience.
micro influencers, even smaller, but
and
they're part of a community.
Yeah, and that's where like affiliate marketing, which South Africa is very far behind on, it's based on
just go into that. What is affiliate marketing?
So affiliate marketing is based on actual sales. So you'll get an affiliate link for Nike. They give you a pair of shoes, and then every time someone purchases through your link, you get a percentage of that sale. So and people are making so much money.
It's so hard for our space because people just don't go and buy through a link.
No, they don't. It's all based on a lead. So when it comes to property, I think even residential property, it does come down to data and tracking it, because you have to be able to track from, and I mean, this is where Robs and I are working so hard now. We need to be able to track a lead that came through a mailer, a social lead, an email lead, right up until 6-7 months, a year, 2 years later, when the deal eventually closes, because it's such a lengthy process, and sometimes there can be so many.
But tech helps to enable that, right? So
100%,
we've got different channels, different, and
if it's set up
everything
correctly,
pulls through to the same universe. Yeah. So I mean, for me, what I'm interested in is, and you've got a team of guys, right? How should a deal maker in this industry, or in the residential industry, or any of the property industries for that sort of matter, how should they be building their personal brand? One for me is just authenticity, obviously.
Sure.
I think people too often try and be something, and then it's really hard, and it takes a lot of energy to continue being that thing. If you just were yourself, you would have done better.
I think if you're looking at more corporate influencers, like people that are trying to build their personal brand in a professional sense, like I think the first thing is to just not knock it until you try it, because you're going to think, okay, I need to do X, Y, Z, I need to look a certain way, talk a certain way, dress a certain way to be an influencer. But there are so many different platforms out there. Find a platform that works for you. If you don't like showing your face, use Twitter, use LinkedIn. If you like showing your face, use TikTok, use Instagram, you know. And as soon as you start and you start getting feedback, people don't build their personal brands because they're scared of what their friends and family might say, right? Social media. It's a
big thing to overcome.
It's massive. Yeah. But social media will show you that there's an audience out there that actually listens. Like the people that are commenting and liking and resharing my viral content is not my family and friends, even though my mom likes all my stuff. Shout out, mom. It's new people. It's a wider audience, you know? So I think it's about finding a platform that works for you, and I mean understanding that there's so many platforms out there for every type of person. And then I think it's about knowing what you're doing. And I think the people
do you think it's just thinking back to the South African context again, do you think it's a South African thing that you're worried about your family and friends? I think we are quite a conservative. Or do you think it's a global thing? Do you think everyone's worried about their family and friends?
I think it's a global thing, but I think it's slowly dying because of how common it's becoming, you know. I think it's becoming a lot less. It's becoming a lot more common to run into people that have thousands and thousands of followers. Yeah. It's also becoming more and more inspirational. And like I said, there's a niche, there's a influence in every single niche. So where you would just be seeing like fitness and travel influencers, you can actually follow property influencers, investors, entrepreneurs that are growing their platforms. There's a lot more to pull from. But yeah, I think the second thing
also
would
a couple of crossovers. You got the fashion property influencers and the fitness
exactly.
property
I think you've actually brought this up. Like you can link whatever you want online. Yeah. Like you can be both a fashion influencer and an entrepreneur or an investor. Like there's no category you have to fit into. Make it your own. Be authentic. But I think that the people that are most insecure about hopping behind a camera and speaking are the people that are worried that they aren't going to know what to say or that they're not going to say the right thing. You know,
the funny thing is that you get such a positive reception from everyone. You know, no one's naturally negative. I mean, obviously there are a few people who are naturally negative, but people are generally positive. You're out there, you're doing your thing, you're making a name for yourself, and people will support it. Geez, I saw that, fantastic. You look great. You sounded good. I mean, I can remember some of the first sort of live TV PR events that we'd been doing, or live TV interviews that we've been doing. It was pretty nerve-wracking, you know. And once you get into it, and once they start getting your name right, then you then you actually just run with it. You know, it's I sort of equate it to, in any sport, there's sort of like you got sort of butterflies as you kick off, as you start, as you're about to swim into the pool or run in a rugby or whatever. It's like an anxiety. But then once you're going, then it's sort of, you know how to talk, right? You've been talking your whole life.
You, John, you are good behind the camera. I think there are people who are just naturally shy. They're not public speakers. And that's where the whole thing of like, find a platform then. Reshare articles, write articles, comment on people's posts, engage. You know?
Yeah, find your space. Yeah,
find your space and make it work for you. And then furthermore, from a personal brand perspective, if you can get... I always think about marketing, even from a business or personal brand, as like a massive spider web. Yeah. And you want to grow your spider web, because the bigger your spider web, the more people are going to get stuck, right? The more people are going to see your name. So if you're just operating calling and email, when you stop doing that, your personal brand stops.
We call it your sphere of influence.
Exactly. The second you are just posting once on Instagram or posting once on LinkedIn, resharing an article, you can stop sending emails and you can stop calling, and that thing might just carry on working for you in the background. So it's about, you know, like waking up. I woke up yesterday and one of my videos from another client started going viral, and someone commented on that video and said, "Is this the Galetti chick?" ?
Really?
They were like, "Is this the @Galetti chick?" And I was like, it keeps on serving you. Like your brand keeps going for you. Even when you go to sleep. And that's the value of social media. And the biggest mistake people make is assuming that their target audience isn't on there, or that they won't derive value from it. You have no idea where your target audience is going to come from these days.
More people you talk to, the more people you know.
Exactly.
Alon always says, you know, you work until you no longer need to introduce yourself.
Yes.
And that's actually such a good way of thinking about it. Like you're going to meet a lot of people, even though you're not necessarily meeting them, but your sort of sphere of influence, as it were, increases. Yeah. And
it's also, there's a trust and credibility aspect. Like when people Google a business to like see what their 5-star rating is on Google, their reviews, it's the same with the personal brand. If someone's going to come into the office and they Google like Galetti and your name pops up on a business day article and they walk in and they see you with a cup of coffee.
Far more credibility, yeah.
100%. It's actually inspirational. You walk in, you're like, oh my goodness, like this person was just,
Tell me something. Do you think that, I understand your style very well, and if I happened upon another brand that you're working on, do you think I'd pick up your style?
Yes.
Yeah, really.
I definitely have like a common thread, especially from a social perspective. Like I personally don't have massive followings like of my own. I operate through the brands that I work with, but you'll definitely recognize a very similar thread. There is humor, there is like a casual / professional element to it. And then there's like this background of like fashion and style that people always seem to pick up, but I've never actually focused on. Yeah. So like if you go look at the Galetti comments, it's always like, where did you get your top? Like, where did you get your shoes? Where did you get your blazer? So there is definitely a common thread, because there is an aspect, like I said, of fear of saying the wrong thing. What I've realized is like if you do enough research, you actually do develop your own opinion anyways. Like even with this whole ChatGPT thing, like I went on like this whole rampage of trying to figure out like, is it going to take all the jobs? Like am I going to become redundant because now you can generate graphics through AI, and you actually start developing your own opinion because you start putting it in your aspect, in your
context. Yeah.
In your context, yes. So I think when it comes to like getting online and starting to develop your personal brand, you do need to have some sort of knowledge of what you're going to be speaking about. It gives you so much more confidence. You're also going to find people that relate to it. You're going to be speaking in a way that will attract people. You can't just hop on and post a couple of videos and expect them to go viral. Find your niche, understand your niche, do some research, connect with people you want to be like, and then get inspired. The whole thing is about inspiration.
Where do you get your inspiration from? Are there a couple of go-to places?
It's funny because a lot of people ask me like, do you spend a lot of time on social media? Because obviously it's a space that I operate in quite a bit, but I don't. Like I think my inspiration definitely comes from other creatives and contrasting personalities. Like I think I very much am challenged and my creativity grows every time I'm faced with someone who like doesn't necessarily see eye to eye with me. Or even like, I think feedback is a massive thing. Even if it's bad, like I think from a creative perspective, you can't afford to just have your style. You can't afford to just be like, I think this looks good, so we're going to do it my way. That's when you're going to sort of, for me,
I think
block.
That relationship between, let's say, the business side being me and the creative side being you, I think that sort of like zero holes barred and no personal feelings involved type feedback and relationship
is subjective. It's 100% an opinion. So the more opinions you take on, it's not as if you're writing a report and someone needs to say if it's right or wrong. That's not how creativity works. Like when I submit a design,
although my opinions are often right.
Yes, John. And that's the most important thing, because if you're designing for Gen Zs or for millennials or for Gen Xs, you need to understand how people perceive your design. So when you say to me like, oh, this logo is disappearing, it's not like that's a personal attack on my design. It's like, this is how John as Gen X perceives my design. So if I'm designing for a bunch of Johns, I need to keep that in mind. So I think my inspiration definitely comes from feedback as well as from other creatives. I thoroughly enjoy interacting with people that will have creative brains, but also that just create in any format, whether it's from a more professional sense in like blog posts and articles and stuff like that. Understanding people's creative processes is very interesting because everyone seems to have a little bit of
everyone's different. Also, that sort of like you're talking your perception or the way that you're interpreting it, your lens or whatever you're seeing it. You've got people who are or are not creative at all. Okay, and it's interesting to kind of see the way that they're seeing it. It's like, wow, okay, now I've got to really sort of change the way that I'm explaining it to you or whatever it is, and then the very creative and everything in between, right? But I think the way that I certainly like to work is when coming up with ideas, just come up with all the ideas, have a completely unburdened, unchecked, non-thought about sort of session where you just write everything down, you come up with every sort of idea that you can, because without boundaries, then you don't limit yourself. And then from there, you refine. You're like, that doesn't suit our brand, or that humor, although funny in the moment while we were laughing at it in the boardroom, we definitely cannot put that on any of our channels.
Like the best ideas, the worst ideas come first.
Yeah. So you just got to get that stuff out there, and you just got to just, go for it. And it's actually, that process alone, I find that sort of iterative process is actually quite fun. And then it's the interesting part is that what you take from there, you actually need to take that and then put it together. So for me, I love coming up with ideas. I can be creative in that space. But then if I actually had to sit down and like try and do it, oh my word, it would take forever. That would be, I would
Yeah.
take hours to do it. I'd fiddle. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be perfect enough. I would like just, and that's where what you're saying is you knock it out, you get out the beta version because you know
Yes.
they're going to be comments. I mean,
Yeah.
the closer you get to your client, actually, there probably aren't any more comments. It's like, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Getting out the first draft is the best part. Like it's after the first draft, it should be a bunch of feedback. Like you should submit a first draft and then expect feedback to make it better. Like sure, maybe there'll be one or two things once you've learned to brand, you submit and it's like cool, done. But I think like submitting a first draft, it's a draft for a reason. It's not supposed to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's also, I've also noticed with you, you're often capturing a lot of the, we're living in this life and in this culture of this office and, there's a vibe or someone's laughing at something. You're very good at actually capturing a lot of that, and just like almost recording or helping to, capture that moment.
I think that definitely
really
came from like the photography aspect because my photography was based around candid moments. Like it was all events photography, catching people laughing, and you literally sit behind a camera. It's quite creepy. Watching people and waiting for them to smile, and then you capture that shot. So when they look at their photos, everyone was so happy that day.
Yeah.
Everyone looked so beautiful that day, but you're waiting for that moment. So from an office perspective, like if I walk, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen me before, you'll be sitting on a couch and like the sun will be coming through and hitting your shoes or something. And I'll be like, that's a good shot.
Take it, yeah.
Yeah, it's about waiting for those candid moments and then actually capturing them because you can walk around with the phone the whole day and not know which. You can take 1,000 photos. Yeah. But it'll be the one or two that you're actually good at.
It's the one time that I feel under pressure. We got live TV, we got whatever, podcasting, we're presenting in front of a lot of people, talking to clients, whatever it is. But it's when you see Kate walk past the boardroom and then reverse slowly with a camera over the face like glass. I'm like, hold the pose, hold the pose, hold the pose.
That's so funny.
I
think
moment.
the whole office shares that sentiment, to be honest.
Pressure moment, especially trying to get some of the old rusks to do TikTok. Let's talk about TikTok.
Let's talk about TikTok.
Yeah, there was a specific question I had is all of these things are overlapping, right? You got Instagram and whatever. Now, commercial real estate, you're probably thinking TikTok. To be honest, I don't really get it, if I'm honest. I keep trying to go on it and fumbling around and getting some really boring stuff that I don't want to look at. My algorithm's clearly wrong, or I'm not. I don't know what it is. I just can't get into it. I can't get the process right. So there's an example of that's my perspective. But the TikTok people don't feel too bad about themselves. But what I'm trying to say is that there we enter the TikTok space, which has had like a massive impact on some of the other channels, which I do like. I like Instagram probably the most, followed by LinkedIn, for example, and. Then you get Alon, and he likes Facebook to start off with. And so everyone has their own sort of go-to thing. How are we seeing that overlap, and how are these things engineering into one another?
We spoke a little bit about COVID, and how COVID kind of changed the landscape of marketing. And I think TikTok really boomed during COVID. That's when it started just gaining so much traction. And I think the reason why TikTok gained so much traction was because it was this element of relatability and humor. And I think we went from a space of being very superficial and curated online because, pre-COVID, everyone was seeing you in person. That's where the main focus lay. Then COVID hit and everyone was deprived of human contact. And then TikTok launched, and it was this very raw platform where people were just telling their stories, their mundane lives, and making that aesthetic. So it became a very relatable platform, right? Just from a personal aspect. Then brands started catching on. And I think one of the first brands was Duolingo. They were one of the first brands. If you go look at Duolingo TikTok now, it's massive. From that point onwards, brands were just trying to figure out how to do TikTok. Exactly what you just said. How do we actually operate on this platform? And I think TikTok's such a great platform in the sense that you get niches, and you'll probably hear or see people talk about book talk or corporate talk or fashion talk. And it's a specific hashtag that is dedicated to TikTok for those specific people. And you get anything, John. I mean, you can have pasta talk, sleep talk, sound talk.
Someone showed me a thing of someone out in the West Strand unpacking their Checkers 60/60 and telling the people what she bought.
Exactly. People are doing people are finding their niches on TikTok. Anyways, I think from a brand perspective, it's one side, I think it's a really great way to humanize your brand, and I think that's what we've been doing on TikTok, and it's served us really well from a, like you said, a flow over perspective. We've pulled a lot of those followers back through to Instagram, but then on the other hand, talent acquisition. There's been people that have joined that found us on TikTok, you know. Then from a brand awareness perspective, it's a fantastic platform to reach a lot of people without putting any paid ads behind it. I mean, we have very minimal resources allocated to TikTok, but it's performing really well, mostly because of me and my face and my blazers. But then we had the conversation, we have in between our humorous TikToks, we have real work is what I call it. I literally have a playlist on TikTok called Real Work. And it'll be like these podcast snippets and stuff like that. When another TikTok goes viral, people go through an entire page and watch all of your content and they learn about your brand. So TikTok's such a non-invasive way to get people to understand, one, culture, but two, what you do without being like,
so to tell a story, right?
Yeah. And I mean, do you know how many times someone will come and follow the brand and then like every single TikTok? There's no other platform like that. People don't do that on LinkedIn. If people connect with you on LinkedIn, they'll like maybe your recent post. On Instagram, maybe like 3 or 4 posts.
Well, it's so hard actually for example, if I were to go, I saw a Galetti post, then I go to Galetti. It's so hard to actually go to their previous posts. It's just not functional.
Exactly.
In that sense.
Whereas TikTok's nailed it, you know, like they've even, if you watch a video and then you go to the page, it'll show you like this was the video you just viewed. So you can watch like the ones around it. And the way that the TikTok algorithm also works is the more you use it, the more it works for you and your niche. So the entire Galetti TikTok feed is other marketing divisions and like real estate professionals. And it's just, I think from a TikTok perspective, it's half of it's brand awareness, the other half of it is just being clever. Like,
so tell me how you get bring storytelling into a brand
from a commercial property perspective.
No, in general.
So again,
and then commercial property.
It definitely feeds into the fact that the marketing landscape is completely different. You're not going to get away with saying, let's take a deal done post, for example. We've just concluded a massive deal. On the one hand, you're going to say, deal done, here's the broker, here's the square meterage of the property, and here's where it was located. Cool. Who cares?
Boring. Yeah.
So boring. Take it from a different perspective. For example, the blood bank deal that we did, we told the story, and it's a whole, I mean, you get Clint speaking about that, and he's telling the story about the interactions with the client, the way that they developed a specific solution for their clientele, the way that the market was affected, and that's why they had to adjust it. It immediately just pulls in a much broader audience of people that want to read the story. You post a deal done with the person and the size, the only people who are really going to care about is probably your competing brokers, you know. Tell the story about the deal, tell the story about the industry, the area, you know, the client, the business, how you actually contributed towards the business's growth.
People want to learn, but people also want content because they're going to have conversations that are, did you see that blood bank deal? Yeah. Actually, they bought that land from those guys who subdivided it. And, you know, so
but I genuinely, I'm quite a strong believer in the fact that if you're pushing out good quality content, one of the big reasons people probably aren't engaging with your content or staying around is because they don't understand. You know, you can get a great brand that has great content, but if no one really understands what you're doing in a broader perspective, we're not targeting just other brokers.
Our clients.
You know, our clients operate in multiple different businesses and industries. So you need to, when you are marketing, you need to be catering to the average person that, like you always say to me, pretend like you know nothing about what we're doing here. How do you sell this property? It's not going to be buy this property on 1, 2, 3, whatever street. You know, it is massive investment opportunity on the corner of XYZ or in city centre, in the middle of Rosebank. Like you have to speak.
What's around it? What other
restaurants and facilities
exactly.
and
where is it? Like we're the Seattles, yeah. Try and love a Seattle.
Yeah.
Try and
our offices don't have a Seattle.
Try and bring I know it's problematic. Try and bring context into the situation. Like how would you emerge if you were from the middle of wherever, somewhere else in the world, and this asset came to your desk or arrived on your desk? How would you know what it felt like to be there? How would you know that was the cool part of Bree Street? You know, when we were marketing 114 Bree, how do you know that Heritage Square is actually really the epicenter of all the cool stuff that happens in town? What other restaurants are around there? What does it look like? What does it taste like? I always like to, I always like to engage all 5 senses, you know. What is going on there? Like, it's not just about like what it looks like. It's what it tastes like.
I was thinking like down there, 114 Bree Street.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna add is that from a storytelling perspective, like I think it's about expanding, but it's also about making it bite-sized pieces of knowledge that people actually care about. You know, tell the story in a sense that it's easy to consume. Don't use the biggest lingo, the longest words. Like, it's not about being the smartest person on the block. It's about being the most engaging person on the block. Like, how can you actually, it's about starting a conversation. And that actually goes back to like the personal branding thing. You don't have to be the smartest or the best or telling all the new facts. Start the conversation and the people will follow, you know. And then from a like social media perspective, I think that's where this whole push, there's a massive push. I saw one of your questions asked about like something about one of the newest integrations or whatever of social media and like digital in the digital space. And I think it genuinely is the push towards video content. It's immediately so much more immersive than static graphics or photos or text. So from a property perspective, I think that is massive, and utilizing the video element of it is big. And even from telling a story, it's so much easier to tell a story through a video than it is to try and explain it.
And I don't think anyone's really doing it. The Resi guys are doing it very well.
But they're doing it in the sense of like walkthroughs and actually seeing the property. It's a bit harder with commercial property because you could walk through a building, might be a redevelopment site. How do you, I mean, that's not very...
No, but I suppose same in Resi, but I think the main difference is, and this is a structural element of the actual industry, in residential, an agent will have 10, 20 mandates, right? And then those are the mandates, you know, or more, but that's kind of like they have those mandates that they are advertising, casting generally for clients. Those clients will then phone them, but there are millions of clients in South Africa. They'll see an advert and then they'll phone them on that piece of stock. So they have limited stock, unlimited clients.
Yeah.
In commercial, you have unlimited stock, limited clients.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. So now a broker will have hundreds of pieces of stock. So it's like, it's hard to manage all of these things. But what I always say is just choose one. Start from there. You know, if a guy could say, I know I'm going to do a deal on that building next, or I'm going to do a deal with that client, well, that would be brilliant. But the reality is that you don't know that. There are limited clients for all these unlimited buildings. I mean, look at Santon. Santon's got like hundreds of offices that are available, you know. Which one should I choose to do the video? Just choose one. Choose any of them, you know. And then walk around and say something cool, you know.
Flick your hair a few
Yeah.
times.
Awesome. Kate, it was brilliant chatting to you. A lot of insight there. I love it. I love working with you. I think you've got a really great creative mind and you do things quickly, which is my preference, you know. So.
Thanks, John.
So,
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on my podcast.
Lovely. Thanks. Bye.